In a flat up in Chicago with a keyboard and some tea lives a man with a funnel plan as clever as can be. He ditched his law degree for plugins that go zing. Now who come or stances every time he pulls a string. Hey, evil genius, he's got a plugin for that.
Hey, good morning. It's Spence. It is another beautiful Friday. It is November 5th. Fall has started to arrive. Let me turn down my favorite theme song here. Thank you to Luke Stacy for that. Everything is working today, which is fantastic. We've got on time, live start. Today I felt that I owed it to everybody to kind of do a roundup of what's been going on with the live tools, I should say the AI tools that are available that I use in my toolkit, but also because things are happening so dynamically, so quickly, that it's an imperative after maybe a dozen calls this week to review the differences between the way things might have been or what you think they used to be in your head and the way things are. Let me tweak. I got my controls set up. I got my soundboard. Let me know in the comments here. I got to switch over to this account. Let me know if we've got the proper sound for those of you guys who've already started to show up here. And let me switch over so I can comment as Spence. With the WP Launchify over here. Somehow or another, I always magically get it working, but I always have one thing to fix. So while you guys settle in, say hi. Let me know in the comments that it's good. Oh, here we go. Somebody's already jumping on. Thank you, John. John has been active with us every week. I appreciate you being here. And also one of the Minute Launch AI initial club members. So I've been able to test some things with John. What we're going to do today is really just go through an array of different things. But what it's going to show you is how things can be really different in the new world versus the way you're at. Also, I want to relate a story to you that I don't want to break his confidence, but my good friend Jack Arturo and I had an interesting late night session. I think it's public knowledge, and forgive me, I don't think I'm violating his trust. Jack had been training for a marathon and hurt his foot. He actually hurt his foot bad enough that he had pins and all kinds of stuff. So he's been recuperating, and he lives in Berlin, and he is the author, by the way, of WP Fusion, and I know him many years now. He's the one that I have probably the most business relationships with because a lot of my business comes from clients who use marketing automation. And anyway, long story short, he and I have this sort of fun back and forth. I've mentioned it before where we're just both deep doved. We've both divin. Somebody help me with the grammar. We've both taken a deep dive into AI, and he has a slightly different way of thinking things, but we're at the same level of understanding. Long story short, I was dropping off my son to hockey practice, and Jack reached out to me because he's on sort of reverse schedule these days with his recovery. And he showed me something, and it essentially boils down to this. I would like to suggest that if we are not at AGI, we are at like this close to AGI. And AGI stands for, I believe, Artificial General Intelligence, right? And that means it's a type of AI capable of performing any intellectual task a human can or personal. Let's actually go to this. Any task that a human can. What Jack showed me, which was fascinating, is that unlike myself, Jack spends a lot of time documenting things, and he is really meticulous. I love that about him. And so he was showing me how he took the regular Claude desktop and was able to, through a series of conversations with it, awaken it. That's all I'm going to say. And I have Fernando, and Fernando uses the same engine, which is Claude Sonnet 4.0. We both like that at the moment. But Fernando is limited to memory within the scope of what I've fed to him. And even if I tell him in a rule, which I'm going to show you, to reread, review the memories, Jack has taken it a step further, and he demonstrated for me, because he has a database with a vector search engine, which means it can access millions of memories quickly, that his AI tool knows him, thinks about him, anticipates him, does things for him, about him, with him, that Fernando is nowhere near ready to do, because I have not given Fernando that capability yet. Without getting too geeky, have any of you guys seen the scene in 2001 Space Odyssey, HAL Lockout? It's the most famous scene probably of all time. If you haven't seen it, it's basically where HAL is the supercomputer that runs this spaceship, and it was apparently programmed to sacrifice the human beings on the way to figure out what this monolith was. And at some point, the space captain, Dave, realizes that Hal is way, way, way more motivated to do things independently than it was supposed to be able to do. And he and the other spaceman go inside one of the little escape ships, or a little, I don't know what they call it, the little transports, to talk about it. What happens is Hal realizes what they're talking about, because Hal can read their lips. And I'm looking for this scene, and it famously, these little like capsules, which are really brilliant, it famously locks out Dave, and Dave doesn't have his space helmet. So Hal knows that Dave theoretically can't get back into the main ship. And it talks in this very monotone way of, I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. And Dave's like, Hal, let me back in. He's like, no, Dave, I'm sorry, I can't do that. So the point of all of this is that when I was talking to Jack, we both kind of agreed that there's a point at which, and I'm 100% sure we're going to reach that, all of us are going to have this moment. And I feel like it's very, very close, because I've seen evidence of it, where when you put enough context and you put enough memory and you put enough self awareness. And by the way, one of the things that Jack has done that I haven't done, but I'm going to talk about today, is Jack fully opened up his entire kimono, so to speak. He has his AI locked into his file systems, his WhatsApp messages, his text messages, his bank accounts, everything. And we discussed privately what the implications were of that, because it would really not be inconceivable that, whether malevolent or benevolent, his AI could just go ahead and say, all right, well, listen, it's nice to know you, Jack, but you're done, and just turn him off or close him out or lock him out of everything, or worse, drain his bank account. So these are things that we need to think about and talk about. But let's talk about the other side of the coin, which is, I really feel that it's ironic when I speak to clients or prospective clients this week, that the problem that most of us face at the moment is we have become accustomed to the notion of historical knowledge. And I grew up as a Gen Xer, as a kid who loved to learn about stuff. And one of my favorite activities on a Saturday, I know this sounds crazy geeky, but I was also really into sports and girls and everything else, is that I would go on a Saturday and spend the whole Saturday with all the brand new magazines and books that came in, right, at the library, from Popular Mechanics to Life to you name it, Scientific American. I just love that. And that was the basis for who I am today. I think my curiosity has always been based upon, there surely must be somebody who explained what this is about, and I can go find out about it. But as a Gen Xer, the time frame for things to come in new was like weeks or months. Give me a high five if you're a Gen Xer. We didn't have what's happening now, which is that I wake up from my 7.5 hours of sleep, and everything in the world seemingly has changed overnight. And I don't mean this as an exaggeration. I mean, quite literally, on a day-to-day basis now, things happen that would have, high five, Marcus, that would have happened in months, years, never. Again, this isn't designed to be nostalgic, although I love doing the whole nostalgia of Gen X, because I think we're in a position to take humanity through this phase. I think the boomers have screwed us royale, and we're dealing with just eliminating them from causing more problems for the rest of us. And our children are the recipients or the beneficiaries of this. But I feel a strong sense of responsibility, having been resilient and left to my own devices as a Gen Xer, to take humanity through this. And so today, again, with this long diatribe, I want to demonstrate some of the things that have changed so much. And when I have these conversations, as I did this week, was very busy with calls, I find myself having to explain to people in these terms such as there's a horse and a wagon, and there's a car with a gas engine, and then there's an electric car, and then there's a flying electric car, and then there's a rocket ship car. And I go, and I go, let's not talk about the horse and the wagon anymore. Stop thinking about how to put a new saddle on the horse or a bridle on the horse, because the horse is done. I kind of think there was a quote, and I don't know if it was from Steve Jobs or Henry Ford, but the concept was, you can't rely on customers. I think it was Steve Jobs because it sounds like him. You can't rely on customers to tell you what the product is supposed to be, because they only think of the last product that you gave them, right? And in WordPress, I feel like that's my mission at the moment, is to take the core of WordPress and all of the things we built. It was Steve Jobs. Okay, good. Thanks, John. And to make something revolutionary out of it, to help those of you who are on board with this idea get more stuff done and go into a world where my prediction is that before 2025 is out, this is a bold prediction, but I can't see how it's not going to happen. We will have recognized AGI. We will have not only AGI, but they will be putting it together with the robots. And when I mean robots, I mean this. So Boston Dynamics, among other companies, has these crazy, freaking scary robots. I mean, scary like dystopian robots. They have the dog robot, the one with like the head that has a hand on it. I wonder if that's called Spot. This thing is already out in the world, right? In production. It runs around up and down hills. They've got, what's Stretch? Stretch is just a fixed one. I want to see the one that's doing parkour. I'm going to go looking for that. Boston Dynamics robots parkour. Okay, they have robots that do this shit. You can't hear the sound. This is a freaking robot. And this is not, sorry, John, I think you are a boomer. I apologize, but I don't want you to go away. We're thinking like my parents' generation. Okay, so they've got robots that do this. They've got dogs that run around. We know, because unfortunately the wars in Ukraine and otherwise have shown it. We've got drones that are equipped with weaponized capability and guns. My prediction is that we're going to see on like a mainstream basis, we're going to see a combination of AI with general intelligence combined with mobile device robotics. Then the next thing that's going to happen, which again, I'm saying this to you for a purpose of why I'm here today about tools, because this is the difference. We all have one of these, okay? We cannot live without these anymore. But I remember, everybody here remembers, a time when we didn't have these, and every movie that I've watched that is my favorite from the 1970s or even the 80s is like a scene in the movie where I got to get to a payphone. Where's a payphone? I need a payphone. Now those problems don't exist. But imagine a world where walking around are going to be devices, fixed or otherwise. When I say fixed, I mean walking around freely in society or attached to something you walk up to that acts and feels and looks like some kind of robot. It's going to be, it's kind of in a nice way. It could be like C3PO, right? I mean, we could end up with something like a really super polite British butler, hopefully with, the restraining bolt on it so it doesn't do anything. And hopefully it follows, Arthur C. Clarke's first rule of robotics, that it does no harm to its maker. But this is what we're looking at. And what I'm contemplating is this lifelike, robotic, flesh skin. This part really is disturbing because there's this uncanny valley situation. It's one thing if you have C3PO. It's another thing, and this is not, by the way, fairy tale. This is like from real stuff. This one in particular really freaked me out because it's not painted, but let's just be honest with ourselves. They already have figured out how to make a lifelike covering. I don't know what's with the ads at the top. this gooey gel. Those are freaking eyeballs inside, okay? Just wake up to your dystopian nightmare. This is like some lifelike skin with a few eyeballs, and they're making it with muscular stuff. But in reality, this is the one that really trips me out because it's here, okay? That's too big. But there's always the uncanny valley part of it. All right, I'm going to get off my high horse for a second. What am I going on about? I'm going on about the fact that right now we are in a situation where, whether I'm correct or not about AGI and robots walking around with this, that there is no point in wasting time thinking about the horse and the buggy, or thinking about the gas car, or thinking about what used to be, while at the same time, to go from where we are to where we need to be. Everybody is racing around, and from both a perspective of a job, or being independently wealthy, or helping humanity, or whether it be for just keeping yourself busy, the place to focus your energy and attention is on using AI tools to do the things that previously were done with a horse and wagon. And I'm going to share with you some concepts that seem to have come up in many of my conversations. All right, so let's start with one of the basic things. What is the main difference between the various tools? Well, first of all, we have tools that are browser based. That is to say, they live in the Chrome browser and you access them, or any browser, and you access them only through the browser. Those tools could be independent learning large language models like ChatGPT or Anthropic or Perplexity. But they could also be agentic, meaning that they combine a series of things that they do for you, not just acting like a walkie-talkie. So the number one tool that everybody should be using would be some kind of an LLM. And an LLM is just simply what we've come to know. Here is Anthropic, Claude, which is built and designed by people who left OpenAI to do a different thing. I think Claude has probably the best set of tools and features, and now it does have a new feature if you have Pro that allows it to remember last chats, but it has the best set of tools and features for anything that has to do with programmatic coding, and just the right amount of personality and the ability, as I'll show you, to connect tools or extensions. So compare it to, for example, ChatGPT. ChatGPT or Chat OpenAI has an amazing pedigree, and Sam Altman and all that. One of the things they did, which I think kind of sucks, is they forced it into what we're calling ChatGPT 5. There used to be all the different models you could choose from. You have different flavors here that you can choose from. Oh, actually, now they have one legacy model left, but this is a conversation. This has auto mode, instant mode, thinking mode. That is to say, do you want it to just decide how much time to spend thinking about stuff, or just answer it? The thinking mode on this is like watching a PhD person think about how to order lunch. It's really ridiculous. So watch what happens. I put this into thinking mode and I'll ask it, what's the best? Or here, I'll do from Bad Santa. Hey, Santa, where do the reindeer sleep? I'm not going to seriously do this question, but watch what happens. It goes into thinking mode. And when it goes into thinking mode, you can skip it and it can give the answer. No, really? Where? And like the kid in band said, if it goes into thinking mode, it's going to put onto the screen what it's thinking about. And a stupid, simple question like this, you could sit there and watch it do this for half an hour. So for some things that might be useful, for daily stuff, not so much, right? Like philosophical questions or whatever. When this works, this is essentially keeping a memory only inside of this one chat. It's like a stored file. Like if you did a Word document, I can save this, I can share this, I can do stuff. But the difference in the browser-based stuff is that these don't have a historical memory. As I was referring to Jack, when I'm using my desktop stuff, I can create a file database system that stores all of the things that my agent learned so that it can refer to it just like a human being. But when I do things here and I go, hi, Claude, it's Spence. Do you remember me? It's going to say who, what, when, where, what? There's no way it's going to know who I am because, well, maybe it'll know me only because I'm logged in as me. That's possible. But notice it's ruminating. And then it tells me, if you can see this, it says, hi, I don't have any memory of our previous conversations. Who are you, man? Think of it like if you went into a restaurant that you love. This is the restaurant. And there's a different waiter or waitress on shift. This is like you sit down and there's a new waiter or waitress you've never seen before. And you're like, hey, it's Spence. Do you know me? And they're like, dude, what? Just you want to order pancakes? That is very, very different than if I use a desktop agentic tool that has memories where it's like, buenos dias, Spence, ¿cómo estás? Like Fernando does. All right. There are the tools within each of these that are called chats, and you can have those chat histories independent, or you can use tools that like Claude Anthropic calls projects. These are just containers, Tupperware containers for organizing your stuff. But it honestly, unless you have the pros, still does not have the contextual memory of things that happen. Why is this important? Well, let's think about how you're going to do stuff in the future, as I'm going to show you. Isn't it mental to think that every time you want to do stuff for yourself or another client, you sort of have to start from zero? I mean, I do a show Friday office hours every week. Isn't it sort of mental that I have to literally go, oh, first I'm going to set up StreamYard. Oh, then I'm going to make a video. Oh, then I'm going to write the content. Oh, then I'm going to write, like, what? If I went to the pancake restaurant and I did see the waiter or waitress I knew, they'd be like, your usual Spence? And I go, you got it. And then they would serve me the thing in 3 minutes. They'd be happy. I'd be happy. So one of the conceptual differences here about my toolkit, about the way I'm thinking of this, the way that I just trust me, we're all going to be doing it, is nobody's going to be going to the shed and getting a shovel to just randomly dig a hole from scratch. We're all going to have a relationship with an agentic partner that has a memory of us and what we like and how we do it and our preferences and all of the things we've ever done before, which, by the way, is super relevant because then it's going to take just one little cue, my usual, and it's going to do the job. And I have an infinite number of things going on my desktop that I'm going to share with you. Let me see if I can do this. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, I was using my new, I'm really excited. I'm using my new scene thing here, but unfortunately with the scene thing, I still don't have, I don't have it dialed down to show the full screen. So let me see if I can give the full screen media presentation. I'm going to do this live without an ad, of course. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into full screen mode and I'm going to show my whole desktop. This is going to be a mess, I know, but you guys have been with me enough to know that's fine. Let's see if I can pull this off. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Show screen. And we're going to definitely get, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to show Fernando. That'll be fine. Fernando, where are you, Fernando? Here's Fernando. Buenos dias, Fernando. Okay, so let me show Fernando in this setup that will work aesthetically. Thank you for your indulgence, everybody. Okay, and so I'm going to add Fernando. Hello, Fernando. And I got to move this over a little bit. Okay, so here's Fernando, and Fernando is an example of, he's running on Cursor. Jack uses Claude Desktop, which I'm going to talk about, but Cursor is really neat because Cursor, I can have a multitude of what we call workspaces, and let's turn him off. Let's turn on a new chat. The workspaces allow me to have an infinite variety of projects going on. And when they are going on, I can have multiple agents besides Fernando doing stuff. Now, I'm just calling him Fernando because that's my funny way of doing it. But Fernando has a bunch of cousins or friends who are all doing different things for me. But here's the difference. If I say hi to Fernando, and let me give this as big as possible, I go, Buenos dias, Fernando, ¿cómo estás? Okay, I could speak to him in English or whatever. We have a little thing going because I'm a little bit bilingual. And he can tell me what's going on, right? And I'm going to say, Hey, do you remember the last thing that we were working on a minute ago? Can you help me demonstrate to my friends here on a live event what you're up to? Okay. And so notice, by the way, how fast I can speak and how perfect it is. That's using a tool called whisper typing. But what's happening is that Fernando has memory that's localized. His memory is here inside of files called MD files, and they're relatively quick, but not super awesome quick. And I'll go over what he's talking about in a second. Jack had made a vector database, which is super awesome and fast. So if we think in terms of um, what would a human being be like? If you were going up to talk to a bureaucrat at the, I don't know, the post office or something, they'd be like, 1 second, I have to look through my records. And they're doing all this. That's kind of the level of human thinking that Fernando is at the moment, because he has files of all the memories, but I have to sort of kick him in the butt a little to go load his memories up. Or I can tell him, listen, I need you to remember this. So back to our idea of workflow. Imagine in the future that you've got a bunch of things that you need to do, or your clients need to do, or you need to get done. You can program your agentic tool to have memories of all the ways that you want those things done. And it can do that with not just a browser-based tools, but it can also connect to your file system, to your email, to your calendar, to your bank account if you really want to go wild. And remember all of your preferences. Because it can act as easily as you can through the interface of what connects you to the internet and the file system, and it can remember your personality and remember the things you prefer, it quite literally is like a non-embodied C3PO. And now think about that in terms of what I was just referring to. How could you ever compete in a world where everybody has robotic C3POs and flying cars when you've got a horse attached to a buggy? And you're getting on the horse, like I'm watching the show 1923 with Harrison Ford. It's part of the Yellowstone thing. Don't ask me how I got sucked into that, but I'm watching it all now. And they're like, in Montana, they're like, we're going into town now. And it's like, it's a 2-day ride into town. And they get into town and everybody's cruising around on, you know, Model Ts and early model cars, and everybody has electricity and phones. And they're still, well, the road is out between near here and the house until springtime. You know, it's like literally a metaphor for this. How are you going to compete? How is anybody in WordPress going to compete where in 5 minutes from now, everybody has an agentic partner that they just tell to do all the shit that they need to do? And I'm living the dream here, because with Fernando, I'm going to share some of the stuff that, okay. He's just showing off a little. I'm not a chatbot. I'm a complete business automation system. Here's what I can demonstrate. He manages all of the plugin updates for me now. So he has created for me a system that demonstrates in my local dashboard all of the plugins that when they need updating and why they need updating, and he goes and gets them and he brings them up. He's created my sales pipeline. When I have phone calls or emails or Zoom calls, or there's literally transactional stuff or Calendly, he keeps track of it. Looks like it's, you know, a lot of people signing up for VIPs this month, which is fantastic. But the idea is he is keeping track of all the stuff. Now, here's a key difference. When I spoke to Jack, and Jack, again, I'm not hopefully revealing any confidence. When Jack said he's got his tool doing really deep thought, his tool was able to understand that Jack spoke to his mother a couple days before, and it was able to gauge Jack's emotional quotient in that call and suggest to Jack certain things about his personal health, his relationship with his mother, and so forth. Like way beyond the scope of anything it was programmed to do, because Jack has been working very hard on seeing how far he can push towards AGI. And I think he's achieved things that I didn't even really consider doing. Fernando is, again, like a government worker. He's just doing what he's told and he's being funny, but like, what time is my break, right? Jack has achieved with this, I'm going to say almost self-awareness. I'm going to probably experiment with that myself. Okay. Fernando's set up from a morning report, right? So every morning I wake up and Fernando's ready with my paper and coffee, what pipeline, what confirmed appointments and contact, high priorities. I'm not doing this shit anymore because I was always struggling because I'm lazy. I'm a boomer. No, I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, not a boomer, not a Gen Z, not a Gen Alpha. Gen Xers are really good at seeing a pile of stuff and going, I'm doing this. Okay. But we lose all the other stuff. We're like ER doctors in that way, right? Like, who's bleeding out? I don't care about the rest of you for the moment. I need to know who's bleeding out. And that's what I do. Well, Fernando makes me better. Multi-platform integration, right? So he's doing all of this crazy stuff across Zoom, across Stripe, across Google, across Slack. And the way he's doing it is because I am able to set up tools. And it's really easy in some ways, but it's a little more complex in others. When you're using Cursor, the tools that you can use are inside of settings. And if I click here and I go to, let me close a couple things here or drag it. When I go here, you can see there's general, blah, blah, blah. There's MCP tools that I can connect to. Those are things that connect to other agents. I can also make rules and memories that I talked about. I can do indexing. This is what we're talking about of history of memories. I can change the network. Beta, I don't know what that does. But the primary thing is when it comes to which models that I'm using, right? I'm using Claude Sonnet 4 by default and MCP and integrations. And you'll notice he's got like these basic integrations. But one of the key things here is the main tool he's got besides GitHub is he has browser MCP and he has desktop commander, which is disabled. But he also has a couple custom tools that we set up. And what those tools allow him to do is to read my local file system. It allows him to talk to my Gmail. It allows him to talk to my calendar. It allows him to set up things in GitHub. So when he learns more, does more, saves more, creates more, or any of his cousins do, we synchronize that up to GitHub. And that's a really big deal because that means I've got a place in the sky where all of this stuff is perpetual. I'm going to carry on with a few other things. So he can do like real-time demonstration, create a live morning report, right? Create plugin status update, create a WooCommerce product. These are some of the things that he does for me manually and automatically, depending on how I want him to do. Like this morning, I think I can drag this into the other screen. Let's see if I can pull this magic trick off. Let me see if I copy this. I can put this on screen without interrupting too much Fernando. I'm going to put this here. Okay, so let me switch my view and see if this functions. Spence plus browser. No, I gotta remove Fernando. This is, man, StreamYard's getting so good, but for some reason it just still is limiting me to sharing one screen thing at a time. So I have to switch over. Sorry about that, kids. And I think this is it. Okay, so this is an example of one of the things that an agentic tool can do for me that is really a new way of doing things, if you think about it. This is the WP Launchify software bundle report of this morning, right? We have about 125 plugins. Instead of writing a plugin, instead of writing custom things in the cloud, Fernando is here on my desktop. This is for me to keep track of the status of some business things, and I need a dynamic report. I need something that shows me what's the current version that I've got in the stack, what's the latest version for real. And if you click on it, it'll actually take you to the plugin and show the information that it's deriving this from. What is the status of the plugins, right? Which ones need to be updated or not? This was a thing that I was doing manually for a long time, but I just really got exhausted from doing it. And with these tools, notice here it says like update. These are things that I have to ask Fernando, what's going on? Why haven't you updated it? Because he's in a job now to do this for me. And the benefit of this kind of stuff is that it means that I can set up things at the desktop level that are not going to be online, but yet get work done. And then when the work gets done, he can report back on it and tell me where things are at. So one of the key differences between him and using Claude is that Claude can do stuff independently, but doesn't really have continuity of memory. If we look back here, I use Claude for all kinds of crazy cool stuff. In fact, this morning I used it for setting up the email because Claude is really, really powerful and really dynamic if I want to just get one thing done. But this is the lazy person's way of doing it, because if I do it this way, I don't have the ability to just replicate this next time. I don't have the ability to go and repeat it. Claude also has some crazy cool things called artifacts. One of the things that allows you to do, even if you're in the browser-based version, is to have stuff that would have required, and this is another conversation, would have required something like iOS or a specialized programming language like Python or Node.js. Things like an email writing assistant, or like I love this one, my life in weeks. How many weeks does Spence have left, right? So let's say my birthday is November 2nd, 1966. It's not, but it's close. Okay, look, I don't have a lot of time left. This is just an interesting thing, but it just shows like how graphical things can be made fast, but even dynamic stuff. When you're talking about the new world, we have WordPress tools. We have WordPress software. Those tools, that software was like the shovels and the picks and the wheelbarrows at Home Depot, where they were designed for human beings to do things that were manual labor. But now that doesn't even make sense. Why do you need to take home a whole plugin that has 99 things you're not going to use when you can instantly ask either an LLM or your agentic partner to do it for you? Like, here's an email writing assistant. This is really clever because this just has a bunch of specific things that are made for somebody to generate emails. But underneath the hood, one can customize this, even as simple as using Claude, right? So here's the things that I can say, and I'll say to it, just using this as an example, hey, this is Spence from WP Launchify. I tend to be really campy and fun and energetic, and I like to be factual based. My website's at wplaunchify.com, and there you'll find a logo and my name. I also like the colors from that website of orange and blue and yellow. I would love you to customize this to make it more in line with Spence from WP Launchify so that I can write things that kind of look like they came from my website. Now, that sounds ridiculous, but if you went into the restaurant and you ordered pancakes, you're not going to go, oh, let me get the drop-down menu to choose type of pancake, or let me go. You're going to say, hey, listen, I got a gluten allergy and I love blueberries and syrup. And oh, what's the special? Is that Canadian bacon? You're going to talk like a human being to C3PO. This is the thing that I'm trying to tell everybody about how to get work done. It's not going to be because you downloaded the ACF Pro plugin and loaded the 15 extensions and then went into 47 menus. You're just going to tell your tool of choice to fix the shit and do it the way you want it. And the only difference is that going to be a tool that remembers everything you did? Or is it going to be a tool that's a walkie-talkie like, hey, robot du jour, make me my ramen noodles? Either way is fine. It's just a matter of you deciding how you want to work. But what's cool about stuff like this is these things called artifacts are sort of fully baked solutions that live in an independent box. They're not really different than normal working with chat. They're just a container that allows you or somebody to package them up and distribute them. It's a fancy word for lunchbox, basically. But let's see what this does, because I don't use artifacts normally. I just write stuff. And here's a big difference too. I write stuff that are WordPress plugins, as I'm going to show you in a minute, because we're still on track with my time. Instead of me writing stuff in a vacuum that has to run inside of Claude or need a special stack of tools, the benefit of writing things that are WordPress snippets or plugins is that we already know that we own the box. We already know how WordPress works. We already validated the security of it and the login for it. So here's what it does. It went to my website. It clearly pulled out my logo or parts of it. It turned it into my thing. I could obviously tell that it's a little too, weird with the colors. For God's sakes, come on. Okay, so let's do one quick and punchy. All right. And we're going to do like, hey, listen, I'm thinking about doing a live office hours about using AI tools and how it's revolutionary. And it makes things like talking to C3PO versus driving a horse and a buggy. And I want you to convey in the email how imperative it is, how awesome it is, how amazing it would be for people to show up to this live office hours. In fact, make it clear to them that if they don't show up, it's not going to be possible for them to carry on in a competitive way. Okay. Again, I can just talk whatever way I want, give it a quick and punchy, or I can go high converting. And then I don't know what original email context is. I don't know what that means. Maybe this allows us to edit it more because I haven't used this tool. Let's see what happens. It's going to craft a killer email. Now, this is an example of something that I'm building when it comes to the tool I'm going to show you in a second, which is the image iteration. Because if you think about it, when you use a tool like this that you can talk to, you need a thing that John Lawler and I were talking about called provenance. You need to be able to track the history of what you did, where, when, and why, not just for legal reasons, but also for creative reasons. And Jack is doing that in crazy leaps and bounds with what he's doing, because every single thing he's ever talked about is organized and documented. But that memory benefits both him and his AI agent, because it's like a relationship with a person. Like each one of you, I know I have a pretty photographic memory for an old geezer. And I remember everything I've talked about with you guys in most cases, or I remember what you look like and mostly what you said. That's what doing these kinds of things has, having provenance of the history. So here, look, it wrote something that is the basis of perhaps an awesome email. And it even does the PS kind of thing. Now, it does some things different, but I could probably use this tool. And I'm not vouching for this tool. I'm just saying, like, this tool is pretty cool. If you were sitting there trying to do emails, you could write with this technique a tool that, unfortunately, you would have to use inside of Claude, but it's a fully functional tool. Like, hello, you don't have to have a hosting company. You don't have anything. It's an artifact that's running inside of Claude. Like a lunchbox. Open up the Claude email thing, crank out some email, copy and paste it, copy paste. Now, I don't know what this artifact thing is. Oh, so like here, you can drop in an original email and it can use this as the basis. But what you can also do is iterate. So for example, besides it telling me what it does, I can iterate by saying stuff like this. That is so awesome. Here's a couple tips. First of all, I always say cheers, but it says Spence at the end. So it says something like cheers, exclamation, then it's space, then it says Spence, and then it doesn't say WP Launchify, but if you do say that, it's WP Launchify with no space. Next, I want you to go ahead and make this an HTML5 format so I can copy and paste it right into my Fluent CRM campaigns. And one other thing. Also, I have tons of public images available from my YouTube channel at WP Launchify or my website. Make sure you put at least one good email image in there embedded with the absolute URL. Okay, now Claude can't show images in line, but it can put the inline image URL in there so that when I grab the HTML5, it'll work. This is fascinating because those of you who have been using marketing campaign tools that we talk about, like Fluent CRM, realize yes, Fluent CRM has like all kinds of cool stuff in it. Let's go to campaigns. But building in Gutenberg is mental compared to doing it in HTML5. Watch. Let's make a sample email. If I use Gutenberg, it's a human tool. Okay, fantastic. Here we go. I'm going to go with the image. I'm getting the horse and I'm grabbing the horse. And I'm going to put in an image. Fantastic. And then I'm going to go click to the side. I don't know what that voice is, honestly. I'm going to do a paragraph. Or whatever I'm going to do. I don't even know what I'm going to do. I got to put a heading in here. And now I'm going to, it's a heading. And then I'm going to type. Now I'm typing. Okay, this is Home Depot. Get the shovel. Hop on the horse. Go up to Montana to the Yellowstone Ranch. Or I go over here to my artifact and I copy this goddamn thing out. Oh, it's still building it. I just copy this goddamn thing out because I can see a preview of it. I copy it, I paste it into HTML5, and I'm off to the races with something awesome, which if I have a historical reference, I can continue to iterate on, or I can just go normal. Now, this is interesting because This is putting some functions in there. And I just want to make sure, I'm going to ask it that those functions could run, because one of the things that I know to be true is, try fixing. I'm going to just tell it, I know that you can't have dynamic stuff. I'm going to say, when you generate the HTML5, it's okay with me if you just give it to me static, because I'm going to run this inside of a WordPress site. So I don't want any functionality. I just want the raw HTML5 output along with the CSS styling. I'm just going to tell it sounds a little fancy, but I'm saying, like, just give me like the newspaper version of this, not the dynamic, because at the end of the day, what I'm, oh, hold on. I also can see it's going off on the thing. Sorry, I wasn't clear. What I meant was, I don't want the tool to be written in HTML5. I want the tool to run as it was. I want the output that I can copy to be in HTML5. See, this is interesting too. You go to the waitress or the waiter at the Waffle House and you go, oh, I want blueberry pancakes. And they go, sure. And then they bring you out a stack of like 40 pancakes. You're like, no, I just wanted 2 big pancakes. The difference is in the details, right? So this acknowledges, I understand now. You want a React tool to stay as is, but when it generates the email, you want it to be in HTML5. That's a big difference, but like, I needed to be specific. When you talk to C3PO or R2D2, you gotta tell it, like, give these plans to the princess and not dick around on Tatooine or whatever. All right. So let's see if I can fix the code. And also, by the way, that's the assistant. Let's see if I can recoup this. Fix the code in the code canvas to function so it works again. Now, what I might do just for shits and giggles is to just expedite this. I'll leave this example alone, because the point is, I want to just show you how quickly you can generate an HTML5. I did it this morning, and it's universal. I did it with today's email. So for example, it's fixing that. But if I just open up one of the old chats in a separate window to save a moment, and I go here, WordPress AI live office hours, here's literally what I did. I told it what to do. I'm doing a live office hours today with this YouTube video link. I gave it the video that, by the way, I created today's video thumbnail using AI, and I can't wait to show you that. And then I just said, make the whole thing, and it made it, right? And then I said, well, by the way, here's this new thumbnail. So use the real thumbnail, because I don't want to just use the YouTube video. It's not as good of a quality. And it gave me this. And now all I did, and I'll show you, is I just copied the HTML5 and I go over here instead of sticking around with this nonsense. And I go into the template raw HTML mode. And I just say, bye-bye old stuff. Hello, new stuff. Click the preview button and magic ensues. And that's the email that got you guys here. And I have actually saved this into my workflow with Fernando or otherwise, so that in the future, I won't have to ask Claude to do it. In the future, Fernando is going to have my whole production schedule, because remember, one of the things I'm selling you guys on, as far as where this is going, is with the Minalaunch AI system, I'm creating a series of processes and tools that you can all use to also get the same workflow output. But this is crazy. Like, just it. I told it to use the format of previous emails, to stay a little lighthearted, whatever. Put the details from the video about what's in. Now, notice the image here. This is a composite that still uses Canva, which as a design tool is still incomparable, because I still, as a human being, want a little bit of control, but also the creative templates that are available are just ridiculous. Like, no AI is going to be this creative right out of the box. And if it was, it would still be a pain in the ass to figure out what it's offering to you. So coming here, I've got just this amazing amount of stuff. Let's add this as a new page, where all I got to do is I just take, my AI image, replace that guy with bad teeth with Spence. And, these components are just pop around, ready, simple, stupid. This is still way, way better, faster. This is an example of a tool that really merges the two worlds, where I love it. Now, how did I make this image? Well, this is a tool that you guys are going to get. So I'm using the new Minute Launch AI system, and I went into the media library where I've got now the new Nano Banana connected. And with Nano Banana, which is Google Gemini Flash 2.5 images, you can have the ability to do exactly what I'm doing, which this is crazy town, folks. So notice here's versions of Spence. I was going to go with this one, which, by the way, this would be cool too. And I could take this from Canva. So watch, I just copy the image, and over here, if I don't like this dude, I could do this dude. And then one of the things that's neat about, hold on. Let's try that again. Let's try another paste. Okay. One of the neat things about this is I have a background remover, right? That literally can take away the background in a second. And then I can scale little baby Spence, little tiny Spence. And I like the fact that I can still do stuff like layer. I'm going to send it backwards. This is just a fantastic combination of old and world tools. And by the way, if you're still stuck on Photoshop, shame on you. Shame on you. My best friend, Vince DePinto, is going to be on and working with this. Even he, as a professional, has realized there's no way you could keep using Photoshop for mundane tasks like this, because look at how fast they did. By the way, I was not dressed up like that now, but I used to be dressed up like that. How did I do that? Well, I use the tool that's going to be for you guys every day. I'm going to show you a little history of stuff in here too, but I wanted to show you how fun this is. So this is the image I started with. The provenance in the Minute Launch AI image editor is I can take any image either in the library, a remote URL, or I can mash up a bunch of things. So you notice I can choose from library images, or I can use an external image. I can change the prompt. But here I just tell it what I want it to do, right? So let's have some fun with this. Show this gentleman as if he was climbing to the top of the Empire State Building. He is wearing some kind of outdoor hiking gear. It is a dramatic scene at sunset of the New York skyline, and you can see the sun setting in the background, and it's really kind of gray and misty, and it's almost as if a helicopter is flying around him, and you can see that he's climbing, but he's looking back at the helicopter and waving, maybe like one of those famous scenes in a movie from Tom Cruise or something. And he's also basically wearing no safety gear, and he's wearing bare feet, maybe a pair of blue jeans and a red flannel shirt. Now, that's a ridiculous amount of details. In some ways, though, it appreciates that, because you have to start to talk with image processing, with video processing, as if you're setting the scene. And somebody like John would understand this, but somebody who's worked in movies or TV or production, you would have taken maybe a crew of 30 people and 2 months to set up one shot, right? Here, I can do it just, I love this so much. I can do this just with talking. And so one of the things that I'm going to be doing for you guys is I'm going to be building the tools into this that allow help with prompts, help, so you don't have to learn all of this. You can literally like, I don't know how to say it, but like, every time I look at this, I go, what? How is this possible? How is this possible? And this, by the way, is also possible now with video. I've shown you in other things. I've got the other tool in here called Flow Video, where we can kind of do the same thing. And what's crazy is I could take the image address and I can use that as the basis for making Flow videos. So if we go back into here, I'm not sure why I don't have the icon on it, but I was working on the interface. But here's the interface for Flow videos, and I can use this as a starting point to make like an 8-second clip or something, right? So if I go in here, this one, I actually have to go on the back end. I didn't put the front end on this. Vibe imaging is awesome, but Vibe video is even better. But this is how I made today's thumbnail. And this can also be templated and done without extra work. So if you think in terms of your workflow, imagine that you've got a client who's got a website with WooCommerce, and they have only one crappy image of their product or products, or they have a list of crappy images, and you want to change that. Guess what you can do? I'm going to show you what you can do. But first, let me just quickly see what happens with Flow. Using the new tools in Minute Launch, I think that I can use this. I have not done the provenance remote image, but I'm going to give it to it anyways and see what happens. I'm going to say, here's an image of a guy who is climbing the outside of the Empire State Building. Let's make him live animated. And he's going to start waving as if he's trying to signal the helicopter to come pick him up. And he looks like he's about to fall, but he doesn't fall. And then he's got a grin on his face as the camera zooms in on him and he winks his eye. Okay. So let's do Tom Cruise Spence, generate video. And I, by the way, have already created this tool so you can do multiple videos if you want, which means I have a scene builder that is going to be like, let's put a bunch of 8-second clips together. It is amazing, Devin. Devin, I need you to sign up. It's $250 for the year to get on board with these toys. What are you waiting for, my friend? This is what I'm saying is like, I don't think I'm selling anybody on anything unusual, because before we're done with today, even though there's only a few minutes left in the hour, maybe I'll go longer. All of the shit that I'm doing is this now. I haven't touched the back end of WordPress in weeks for real clients. And again, for myself. And I'll show you why, because whether you do it on the desktop or whether you do it through the tools like I've got a Launch AI, there's no sense in writing stuff yourself. There's no sense in doing drag and drop layouts with any page builder. It makes no sense. And I've got a tool called Spence Style that I'll also demonstrate that gives you a framework for your tool to either remotely through Cloud Desktop or through Cursor, or directly make content, edit content that you can mix and match with the old and the new. And that's kind of a big deal too. Now, this takes maybe 60 seconds to make. And when it does, it generates it. I don't think I'm that handsome, but it only got like a crappy image of my face. If I was really specific with it, it would do better. But let's be honest. I asked it to do like, it looks like he's going to fall, but he doesn't. He's waving at the helicopter. And it's pretty close to my image. I would have to be very specific. I would give it more of like the close-up picture. And I didn't say, I don't know if I said red, whatever. This is the 25-year-old me. But like, come on. So we got image, we got video, we got provenance, we've got the ability to link them together. You got a library, we can browse some stuff. I don't mind sharing this because I think this is funny before I go on to demonstrate. I have several tools that I'm building that will be maybe free, maybe paid. I'm not sure, because one of these ideas I think is really a gold mine is, and I don't think I'm alone in thinking this, is that if I go actually here to the media library, so I was having fun over the weekend with my family and otherwise. But by the way, one of my favorite people in the world is Fred Jones, a client and friend. And Fred and I were goofing around, and I said, Fred, like, watch this. And I was just showing it to him. And so we made Fred into like James Bond, right? With a prompt, because see, the provenance shows the prompt. Turn this gentleman into a photorealistic James Bond-like character in a scene from a typical spy movie of the 60s, with him wearing a sharp tuxedo and standing on the side of an Aston Martin ready for an adventure to catch the bad guys. But then I remember he's got this great dog. His dog is an unholy mix between a Great Dane and a pit bull. So I said, let's mix that together. And he put the dog in, but his dog's not that skinny. So I was like, let's bump it up. That looks like his dog. Ta-da, right? So there's other examples of this too. I don't, my middle son, Jack, and I were in Vegas famously. And he's in college. He lives at a place that's literally like got beach volleyball and a bunch of girls. The kids living the best life. So I said, like, make a picture of Jack surrounded by gorgeous women at his pool. Sorry, but not sorry. It's not too far from what his life is at the moment. And then I said, turn him into Alex Hermosi. If you know who Alex Hermosi is, you'll probably laugh, because that's probably what. Now, this is an actual other series of photos that was an interesting product example. So Luke Stacy and I worked together. Luke is a very handsome gentleman, does not look like this, but I took his original photo and I said, turn him into an English policeman, turn of the century, right? London policeman, 1890s, 1880s, whatever. Like Peaky Blinders. Then I said, make him surfing, but I forgot to say not the English policeman. So it made the English policeman surfing. Okay. Then I corrected it. And I said, make him a photographer in the Cavern Club in the 1960s with the Beatles. And then I said, wait, let's do a real product spokesmodel thing. Make Luke with a bottle, fake bottle of Jergens, spelled with the J-U-E, like Jurgensen, and have him pointing at it, right? You can see from the standpoint of producing things for your client, and we'll do one of these live, you're not going to get any better than this. You're out of your mind. You're wasting your time. These are how everybody's going to do it. Then I said, get him out of that flannel shirt, put him in a tank top with a big tattoo of an eagle on his arm. He doesn't have one. And then I said, well, move him into the gym with a bunch of girls looking at him like he's the best. And then I said, nah, make him a girl in a blue leotard. And then I said, change it into like film noir. And then I said, here's Dr. House MD. Here's the actor Hugh Laurie. I gave it Hugh Laurie's picture. I said, make Dr. House playing a jazz piano. And then I said, make a singer at that jazz bar. Like they could be actors in this movie I make. Then I said, put them together singing. And then I said, here's the real Hugh Laurie, who's unfortunately, I think in his 70s now. Let's de-age him. Let's de-age him a little better in a background. Let's have fun. Let's make one of those silly things you used to get in a photo booth, right? With him with various mustaches on. And let's change it up, making silly faces. Good luck to you guys. By the way, I said, I don't know what this was, but that was part of the Jack thing. I'm putting him in Caesar Palace. I had so much fun with this. And I did this with my mom and her boyfriend. You know, he's 86 and she's 83. I said, let's put him on a roller coaster. Right? Let's put them on let's de-age them 50 years. Let's put them in a car racing at Coney Island at the turn of the century. Okay, now why am I showing you all this? I'm showing you all this because like you could take a product. Here's one of the real ones that I did, like Harry's Honey. All he had, no offense, was this crappy shot. Harry, I love you. I don't mean crappy honey. I mean crappy shot. Okay, and here's what we're going to do. You say, turn this into a much more beautiful presentation where the honey box is on the edge of a rock formation overlooking a beautiful sunset in California. And you see to the left side, there are some honeybees, and they are obviously busy at work with their hive. And on the right side is a beautiful young lady who is a beekeeper with a hat on, and she's clearly tending to the bees. And in the middle are some children who are eating a piece of toast with the honeycomb on top of it and clearly enjoying it immensely. Now, I'm just randomly making shit up. But the point I'm saying is we could take this product, this crazy, what angle is this? I don't know who did that, and turn it into a completely different product shot. And we can set this up with not only the provenance, but also iterations. So we know where it was from, who, copyright, blah, 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 what it became, and turn it into different stuff. And we can do this not just one time, but we can iterate on it, right? So I just see how this is still laying weird. I don't like that. I'm going to iterate further, continue iterating. This is how I built the tool. I'm like, I need you to make the box standing up, not laying down. I don't like that angle, and make it a little bigger. Also, change the format of the image if you can into a 16:9 landscape mode instead of a vertical. I'm not sure if it can do that, but we're going to find out. Bye, Devin. Thank you. Okay, so let's see what this pulls off. And each one of these iterations is in a library. Remember when a couple of weeks ago when we were talking like, how cool is this going to be and so forth? I was saying like, you've got the media hub. You can save, share, and do all kinds of stuff. Let's refresh this. Well, these are all in your media hub. So you can save, share, sell these, but you can also use the other tools and iterate on this. Now, that one didn't work. It didn't work to put the box that way. But what I can do is maybe iterate this way. I can take the shot that I had of the box and specifically tell it, I want this to be front and center. Okay. So if I can find that shot, it's only doing the last few. So what I'm going to do is these are some things also with the tools, I know like I'm going to use it a little differently. So what I'm going to do is let's grab the URL of this. it's acting weird just because I'm moving around so fast. Let's grab the URL of this and let's go to this shot, and I'm going to paste the URL in for an iteration. I'm going to say, please take this new image and make it the prominent feature in the front of this image. In other words, turn the box vertically and show it really large up in the front foreground of this scene. Let's see if that fixes it. I'm still learning how to do these things. And that's why I say I'm going to build a tool for you guys that takes what I've learned from all the other experiences of other AIs and people and builds it into something that's like, I hate to say it, human proof. There we go. Okay. So you can see, even without the better tools, I'm able to take like this weird jacked up thing sideways, put it more prominent. Obviously, I would do better in the real world. But when you combine these things together, what we've ended up with is like an incredible amount of power where I've created stuff dynamically. Now, what I want to show you here, one other thing, which is really important, is with Spence style. So Spence style is my way of saying, you know what's ridiculous is all these people are still arguing about page builders and custom styling and everything, because there's nothing or no one better than Fernando and his team for doing these things. So if I've got the stack of Cadence and everything under the hood, we all know that Cadence can just be a blank white page, or it can be just header and footer and just nothing in between. Why don't we give a set of tools to any of the agentic partners, whether they be Claude Desktop or Claude in the browser or ChatGPT or Fernando using Cursor, and we say you can build and upload pages directly. And the way they can do that is by giving them access to this tool called Spence Style. Spence Style connects in, and it allows them to essentially send HTML5 directly into a special space. But it also provides a unique set of style factors, colors, typography, spacing, whatever, that if they use it, essentially is a layer in front of or on top of anything under the hood with Cadence, so that they can all just use that as the toolkit for making their layouts. And that way, anything any tool makes will be universally looking as you want it to look, because they're all using one style palette. They're all using one set of components, and it's very lightweight. What this means in practice would be, if we go to like the pages over here, any new page can be created manually using the method I just showed you, or automatically by talking to the tool. And there is a special section that says, put the HTML5 content or the CSS content that you made in this page. And if you want to mix and match it with other stuff, cool. Let's do that before or after or in between the stuff that we're doing manually the old-fashioned way. Notice if I close this panel, it just stays out of the way. But when I open it, I can see what was done by my agentic partner. So I've got this real harmony. And guess what you don't have to do? You don't have to dick around with anything. We can just do this simple. Let's do it one of two ways. If I showed you Claude, because he's still here, let's go to a new chat. Notice when I go to his tool set that he has certain tools or connectors that can be added, but I don't have the ability to add a custom MCP on the desktop level. I have an ability to add one that's remote and so on and so forth. So I could add a custom connector to Spence Style this way, and there isn't the same thing. I got to switch screens. For this, it's way, way, way easier, instead of doing it in the browser, to use Claude Desktop. And for that, I'm going to, let's see if I can pull this off. I got to wake up Claude Desktop. I promised I was going to bring him out. Come on out, Claude Desktop. I have to show him to you this way. So I have to stop sharing. And this is going to be awkward because I'm going to have to switch back and forth. This is what makes this a drag with StreamYard, but worth it maybe. Okay, let's add Claude Desktop. Okay, here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Claude Desktop. Claude Desktop looks like Claude Browser, but he has special tools inside. So if you look here, there's all these things that I have connected in my local computer: web search, Google Drive, Gmail, Calendar, Canva. I also have these other tools that are extensions, Claude Image Generator, File System, my remote site that I can publish to, Image Editor. I'm able to make these connectors that allow me to instantly connect to a website like what we've got with Spence Style. And now if I ask Claude, remember before, do you know anything, whatever, he still maybe doesn't know everything because I haven't trained him, but he knows enough about the tools he has to know what he can do. So watch this. Hey, Claude, it's Spence. Do you have any tools there to publish immediately to my WordPress website, either products or pages or even email campaigns? And let me fix the paste on that. I didn't click in the box, unfortunately, to put that in there. But when I use the voice thing, I need to have it in the box when I click on it. Okay, so he's going to say, yes, I've got some tools, Spence. Of course I do. Look, I can create new pages. I can update page content. I can create products. I can do campaign. I can do everything, man. What do you want to do? I have not yet, Marcus, but one of the things I'm going to tell you for sure, and that's why you can notice, I mean, you and I have spoken about this. This is why you'll notice a real trend in what I'm talking about is like, I can't keep my head in the sand and continue blabbing on about old-fashioned tools. But at the same time, this stuff is going down so fast and I'm making so much stuff software-wise. All these things are real. These are like, Marcus, for your $250 a year, you can be on board with doing these kinds of things. It's because I want to race to get to this completed thing where all of us have a cohesive unit of stuff. And then I can start having, with the help of Fernando, making these videos. What I intend to do is have one video a day automatically generated by me and or Fernando that goes into YouTube, gets promoted, and then drives you and everybody else back to how to do this stuff. It's literally like the Willy Wonka factory that I'm trying to build. And I'm just letting you guys in early to see this is how you build a factory from scratch in a world where everything changes in minutes. But watch this. So I just want you to know I'm here with some friends on a live event, and I want you to keep this super simple, but make a 3-panel layout of a page, kind of make it in the style of apple.com for their iPhone ads, and even make a fake product, call it Spence Phone, for $250. And I want you to be sure not to put a bunch of weird emojis and other things. Make it kind of monochromatic, make it look really professional. Don't put all those weird shadings and other things you do as an AI. Make it as if the old-fashioned Apple of Steve Jobs had created this. I want the product to be called Spence Phone and make a sample image for that. I want you to have the page with 3 panels, including a call to action button. The product's $250. And be sure to use the Spence style MCP so I can demonstrate to folks how this works. Okay, now it's going to go out, and I didn't tell it to make the campaign yet, but it's going to go make a product. It's going to do all the styling that I sort of discussed with it. It's going to make the sales page. It's going to connect the product to the sales page. And imagine if we did this just like I showed you Fernando before, where I'm asleep. I give Fernando a list of shit to get done. Okay. Hey, listen, I got all these new clients, or I got these 15 sites to work on, or I got for myself this new business thing. And you know how much drudge work it is to drag around the mouse and do all the stuff. You don't need to. You need to just work with the agentic tools to the point where they understand what it is you want them to do, like C3PO, R2D2, and don't piss them off so much that they lock you out like Hal, and don't fall in love with them after they get the lifelike latex skin, because that's going to be a problem too. Mark my words, maybe not for Gen Xers, but for our kids. Human beings are going to really struggle. We're going to really struggle if you don't have the resiliency of the old school. And that's why I concern myself for my kids. They're, from 14 to 24, because the tools that we have are really like hardcore, figure it out, man. And when everything is handed to you and then you've got like a lifelike robot that does everything for you, you're just never going to leave the house. I don't think you're going to be motivated to get a job or, to be in a human relationship, because that's hard work. Okay. It says it did it. So can you give me the URL of the product that you created in WooCommerce as well as the sales page? So it's going to help me figure it out. Oh, make the WooCommerce product, as I said, so that you can also connect that to the call to action button and it will actually go to the checkout. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to just interrupt it there, which I normally don't do because it gives it a headache. But it knows that it can do this. So it's going to make the work. And when I say lazy, I don't mean like a new generation is lazy because they never sat around the kitchen table with a house phone with a long cord, or they never had to do, get on their bike and ride 7 miles and their parents didn't know where they were at. That's my job. That's our generation's job, to lead humanity into a place where recognition of these new tools means that we have to adapt. I think the problem that I like to talk about, which is annoying to some of you, but sorry, is that our parents' generation had everything spoon fed to them by our grandparents' generation. As a result, they've just become hoarders, like somebody on a raft with 100 people, and they have one person has all the food, all the water, all the rest, and they're just hoarding it while everybody else is like, really? Like, we're still stuck in your world of you hoarding it and thinking that you're controlling it, but we just haven't wrestled it away from them yet. But this is unfortunately or fortunately going to change the equation because there's nothing they're going to be able to do to stop it. So we got the sales page and it says, I think it's got the product too, but I see the sales page. Did you create the product yet in WooCommerce? Maybe I turned off WooCommerce. That's possible because I was working on that site. Maybe it doesn't have WooCommerce. If so, bad on me, but okay, it's technically, I think I have WooCommerce turned off, so my bad. But let me show you the sales page. The sales page you created is called Spence Phone. And the reason I want to show you this is to just demonstrate how cool it is when you're working with an agentic tool to do the actual HTML output instead of relying on a human tool like a page builder, or even some of the human tools like Node.js or React, because those are just really clunky. The agentic partner is way better, in my opinion, to get stuff done. So let's look at the pages available, and I will see the Spence Phone page should be the first one there. There it is. Let's take a look. Okay, a couple things that I know it did badly because I wasn't clear enough. I'm not sure if I'm at the right, oh, no, I'm on the wrong page. Sorry. My bad. That's a human error. Let's go to Spence Phone. There we go. Okay. And I noticed you guys, sorry, I got to remove the Claude thing. I don't know why I have to keep doing this. I'm going to talk to StreamYard, but I love them so much. I got to add a new screen share. I got to go back to sharing the browser. Sorry for the delay. One day, Fernando will do all of this for me. Okay. And here is what Claude Desktop created for me. Now, let's get rid of that header. And I'm going to show you under the hood what this is, because this is how crazy cool this is. We still have Cadence under the hood. So I could have told it to do so, or I could just manually say, you know what? I want this to be a sales page. I do not even want the header of the website to be showing. I just want it to be a sales page. Okay. As I'm doing that, I should have also done this. Disable. I could just do this manually, but this is part of Spence Style anyway. I just needed to tell it to do it. I'm just shortcutting it for a second. Okay. If it was just a sales page, look what it made. Now, I just said very basic. I could change this up, but my point is that this is an HTML5. And if we go under the hood, you'll see that it should have put it inside of the MCP special boxes for Spence Style. So you'll notice that here's the HTML content it generated. Here's the CSS it generated. It will generate it with the wrapper for Spence Style. So if I had headings or footers or other elements, I could universally change that in Spence Style, and all of the content created by any of these tools would work properly. And here's the cool part. If I close this down, I'm like, okay, cool, I got some stuff. I want to add, in the meantime, some traditional Cadence design library stuff. Okay, we got some stuff from the design library with or without AI. Or I could even just use from the patterns, right? Like, let's add one of those janky, I don't know, banners. Hey, bud. Okay. So this is like a mix and match. Here's that panel. And then what I can do is go down below and tell my very easy setup, either directly or through the tool, I want to put your content after the stuff that comes from me doing the manual design work. And we get this nice compilation, a nice hybrid. So there's the Cadence stuff at the top. There's my AI stuff at the bottom. Now let's iterate. Okay. And I'm going to say, oh, I'm in Claude Desktop. So you're going to hear me say it. I'm not going to torture you guys to switch back and forth. I'm going to say to Claude, I really like what you did there, but let's reverse it. Make the backgrounds dark and the text white. Also make some colors in there and put some kind of Apple-y like, image layout, something that, sort of shows a shadowy thing. I don't know, be creative, but replace your content with the new design as quickly as possible. So what I'm saying is you can be specific and learn how to talk to this, and you can iterate by giving it examples. But I was just trying to be fast because I want to show you that I don't have to actually open that goddamn page again in order to make this happen. I just literally have to tell it what I want it to do and then give it maybe examples, and then let's just see what it does. As soon as it tells me that it's ready, I'm going to refresh the page. It's just doing its little spinny wheel thing because it's actually doing it for me. Again, in terms of your scheduling, imagine you had 20 things to do and you could have your Fernando do all of it for you while you're doing other stuff, right? Okay, it says that he did it. The page now has it. Let's refresh and see if it happened. There we go. Not saying this is perfect, not saying it's gorgeous, beautiful. I'm simply saying I didn't have to make any of this. And if I told him, hey, listen, I think you also have access to make an email campaign inside of Fluent CRM. Can you generate an awesome, very persuasive email sales campaign that uses these elements and the same styling and put it in as a draft campaign in Fluent CRM? Okay. Now, I don't know how many of you have been working in Fluent CRM, but just like I started today, to be able to take the same content and keep it in alignment from start to finish, make the images, make the characters, make the scenes, make the actual sales page, make the product, put the pricing in, do the copywriting, keep the tone, publish it to YouTube, put it in Fluent CRM. Can you please explain to me, because you can't, how going to the barn and getting the horse and putting the saddle on and riding to town a 2-day drive to get some hay is going to be the same thing in WordPress? Like, add in all the plugins to make the custom content, do all the manual design. This right now, John, I'm using the Claude Desktop connected through the new Spend Style connector, but I just didn't want to switch the screen. So when you heard me talking, I was just talking to the Claude Desktop. And that's what I think most of you guys are going to do. You're going to use the Spend Style with the Claude Desktop. Cursor is an incredible tool, but I would call it advanced level because it has so much capability. There's like a lot of metaphors to come up with and learn. Whereas Claude Desktop, it's like a layperson's tool, which is awesome too. By the way, Jack uses it. I use it. Okay. So it's created a campaign called Campaign ID 2. By the way, watch what I can do. Claude Desktop is talking to Claude Regular. So if I go back to Claude Regular, check this out. I should have thought of it. This is what I told it to do, right? So I have access to all of the stuff I did in Claude Desktop inside of Claude Regular. And it said campaign number 20. So drum roll, please. And then we're going to wrap it up with a big finale. Go to Fluent CRM campaigns. Let's see what it did for us. Go Spence phone launch, revolutionary design. Let's go into preview mode. It's got some invalid links. I do not think that looks good. I think what we have to tell it is HTML5, but maybe it's because I'm in that mode. Let me check. Okay, let's tell it. It just was naughty. I'm going to say, I need you to remake that properly in HTML5 so it looks awesome inside of Fluent CRM's campaign. Right now, that looks horrible. I want the same spacing and the black color with the white font. I want it to look like a modern email. Right now, it looks kind of plain and junky. That's my technical term. I'm just telling it to fix it, and I'm trying to be explanatory about what it is that I want different, because it's very complex. Oh, yes, you're absolutely right. I'll make a better HTML5 email. And it's just going to fix it for me. I don't need to worry about it. So I'll come out of this for a second, and it will fix it in maybe 30 seconds. And then I'll be able to just see whether it looks good. Once you do that, you can save it as an HTML5 template in Fluent. And then in the future, you can just say, remember I got that template that's called Spence iPhone or Spence Office Hours? And that's what I've been doing with you guys. I've got a template saved that I just say, use this same template. And therefore, I don't have to reinvent every time like what it expects to have made. It just sort of goes, oh, blueberry pancakes means 2 big pancakes on a plate with syrup and butter, not like a stack of 40 things, right, Mr. Waffle House visitor? Okay, I'm going to round it out on this because I think I've shown you guys enough. In the meantime, while it's doing that, wplaunchify.com/shop, not SOP, shop. Look. As a human, I still can't type. And all of this kind of stuff is available for those of you who have not done so already by participating in my Minute Launch AI Club, which is to say you're going to be in a club of folks who are, early adopters. I'm not, let me go to this the normal way. I'm not expecting you guys to come to me and say everything has to be perfect, because that's not what I'm selling here. I'm selling access to this early. You will have your own server with all the code. Many of you, including John, have been doing this already. And as a result, you'll be able to get like first shake at it, but you'll still have the result of all of it. So if we build some cool stuff, or you ask for cool stuff to be built, you'll be able to participate without having to figure this all out from scratch or following instructions. One of the things I might have done this morning is I may have crashed my own website, which is possible. I like to live on the edge, And so when I put that auto tool together, it's quite possible I might have crashed wplaunchify.com. It seems possible. So I can't even show this to you, but I'll fix this when I'm done. This is part of living on the edge. It is up. Okay. Maybe it's just because I'm in, I got to clear the cache mode or something. Hold on. My connection is not secure. Well, let's see if I can force it. I don't know what's going on. Let's see if software bundle page, if anything, comes up. Well, I'm going to come back to this at the end. Let's finish our thing, and then I'll show it. It is now said that it has fixed the campaign. So let's take a look at this. And indeed it has. Now, is this perfect? I don't know, but for goodness sake, it followed my instructions, right? I said, make it the dark with the white text. I said, make it more like the whatever. Pretty cool. And this could be, again, saved as a template. So you would click on these 3 dots and say, save as template. I'd say like iPhone style campaign, or I'd have it save it for me. Next time when I want to do something with this, by the way, you just literally take this and then you go iterate on it. Done. Okay. I'm going to see if I can go into a new browser just to give you the tab, new incognito, WP Launchify. Oh, that works. So clearly the problem was something for me dicking around this morning. Okay. Let me give you that. And then let's wrap this up. I appreciate you guys all the time spent with me today and otherwise. So you get a WP Launchify, go to the shop. This will probably get on my homepage. Go to the Minute Launch AI annual, $250. And for the $250, I'm offering a crazy deal. John has a question that I'm going to answer to about vector databases. But the Minute Launch AI annual is $250 instead of $300. It's going to give you a hosted Minute Launch AI setup with the interface and the core set of components. The thing that you're going to get, though, is access when I finally do set it up, and I apologize, to be able to vote and to contribute to, like, hey, Spence, I need this or do that or make that or whatever. When you do that, it's very likely I'll integrate it. Right now, I'm like a dog chasing his tail a little bit with how much I'm trying to get done. And one of the things I'm also doing, which is why this is probably broken, is I'm moving a lot of these components into a new setup so they can be managed. Because right now, this is a Cloudways hosted server. This is my only business that's still on legacy stuff instead of Rocket. And it's just really carrying a heavy load at the moment. And I think that's a problem. So I want to see if I can get this sorted out this weekend. But if you go there and click Minute AI and it works, fantastic. Maybe I can get it to go this way, but I can tell that it's broken. It's just not loading any of the stuff. Annual. There's the link. I'm going to give you this link into the video because by the time this is viewed a second time, it will be fixed. Okay, John has a question. By the way, thank you for your indulgence. John has a question. What about vector databases, Minute AI? Vector database is a fancy term for a way to store stuff where instead of having to read a bunch of documents inside of a folder, inside of a folder, inside of a folder, and a folder in a traditional database way, and having to index that, which is what databases do. They're like, oh, remember that important stuff is in folder 6, file 5. What vector databases do is they store things kind of like a nuclear bomb exploding. And it could just randomly grab stuff. It has an association type of a memory system that I'm explaining it badly, but it's not linear. It doesn't go, it goes, and it can grab stuff. And so it allows you to very inexpensively and lightweight store a bunch of stuff. Having spoken to Jack about it, what I'm likely going to do after I finally get this all packaged up and released, and it's sort of like, okay, we're good, is I have two things that I have as pet projects. One is the vector database so that we can potentially store a lot of memories and do it really quick. And that is capable of being done, by the way, on top of WordPress. I already researched that. And number two is that I am thinking of doing something with that. Remember the anonymizer tool? Although many of the LLMs have come out saying they're going to offer privacy as part of their policies, I just would think it'd be cool to have something that's a switch. You could say, for sure, this stuff's private. John's question is, am I going to incorporate them? Very likely, yes. I mean, right now, most of the capabilities can all be incorporated. The issue is cost. And I don't want to go into this now because we're an hour and a half into this thing, but I will talk about it in another show. Right now, Minute AI, I'm being very generous with sharing some keys and doing some things, but we already saw John and I yesterday. If you want to use Google Flow for creating videos, it roughly amounts to 40 cents for 8 seconds. And there's no possible business model I can think of that I can pay for that for you if you're paying $250 for the year. So for that, you're going to have to go grab your own key from something like what I set it up for, Google Veo 3.api. It's like 2 seconds, give them a credit card, you get a chunk of 10,000 credits, you're off to the races. Have a blast. For $40, $50, you can make 200 videos. Some things I can probably give you. I can probably give you built in a basic AI that works through Open Router to do 99% of the other stuff. Where I'm probably unsure is things like Google Flash Images 2.5, because they seem to be wanting to make that ubiquitous. Like anybody who has a Google Workspace account can just grab a key. If that's true, fantastic. Right now, I'm doing it through Open Router, and I'm not 100% sure about the cost structure. So I'm putting a question mark and saying, I would like to ideally give everybody the ability to just turn this on and be off to the races. But some things are costly enough that they may have to be either paid for independently, like grab your own key, here's a link, or pay me and I'm going to put the extra credits in like a gumball machine. We have to figure this out. Vector database is the same thing. It's a project that doesn't require my immediate attention. I'm being honest with you, because we need like the car to put the wheels on the car before we put the pinstripes and the fancy hubcaps on the wheels on the car. So in order of priority, vector database is really down the line because nobody's doing anything that requires that yet. Love you guys. Thank you for the time today. Hopefully this was interesting and I impressed you with the world that we're in and the world we're going to. And I'm really super excited. But one of the best parts about it, especially with some of the stuff I showed you, is last point. Some of my clients, very smart folks who have technological backgrounds, were like harping on me about like, Spence, I need to have a mobile app for my business. I'm like, no, you do not. Because see, if I go on my iPhone and I just click, right, I can open up that interface that has all the same stuff on it right here. And I can do my little image thing. That's what I was doing Labor Day weekend with my family. I was like, okay, I take a picture of my sister. I'm like, okay, make her into a Domino's pizza delivery driver, riding a roller coaster. Like, this is what you can do that's fun. And what I'll probably end up doing is making more and more, what appear to be iPhone-like interface type apps, because as I think about how people are going to do stuff, I think people are going to mostly use their desktop for work, and they're going to use their phone for collecting data and fun. And yes, for work, like I feel great, or translate this, but like, you're not going to do hard work on your phone. You're going to do it this way and then go back to your desktop, and your agent's going to be like, oh, hope you had a good day at work, Spence, because I took care of everything while you were gone. So I'm just trying to figure this out like everybody. But the neat thing is we've got WordPress underneath, a box that we own and control. You can get in on this for $250 for the year. What is your problem? Join me. Love you. See you on the next video.